hook embedded at the very beginning of the story as requested. Before you scroll, listen. Because what happened on a quiet American roadside when a billionaire's Ferrari died and a barefoot little girl whispered, "My dad can fix it," will change how you see money, power, and family forever. If you believe stories should move you, surprise you, and punch you right in the heart, hit subscribe right now. This channel brings you unforgettable stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. The Ferrari died with an expensive cough, a sound like pride choking on dust, right there on a sun-bleached stretch of two-lane road outside a forgotten town that didn't even bother putting its name on most maps. And Marcus Hale, tech millionaire, venture capitalist, man whose wristwatch alone could buy every house within 5 miles, sat behind the wheel stunned, staring at warning lights, blinking like tiny red accusations. Because in all his 42 years of winning, nothing had ever truly stranded him before. Not emotionally, not financially, and definitely not physically. Yet here he was, phone showing no service, suit jacket tossed onto the passenger seat, Italian leather baking under the afternoon sun, when he heard a soft voice at the open window say, "My dad can fix it." And he turned to see a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, hair in messy braids, knees dusty, holding a jar with fireflies punching weak green light against glass, her eyes calm in a way that unsettled him, more than the breakdown itself. And he almost laughed, not cruelly, but reflexively, because the gap between her confidence and his reality felt absurd. And he said, gently but distracted, "It's not that kind of problem, sweetheart." To which she tilted her head, studying the Ferrari as if it were a stubborn animal, and replied, "Everything's that kind of problem," before skipping back toward a gravel driveway where a weathered house leaned slightly like it was tired of standing. And Marcus watched her go, telling himself he should flag down a tow, that he should walk until he found signal, that he should do anything but follow a child's promise. Yet 15 minutes later, with the sun lowering and the silence pressing in, he found himself standing in that same driveway, listening to the rhythmic clank of metal from a detached garage, where a man in grease-stained jeans and a faded military jacket worked under the hood of a pickup that looked older than Marcus's first company. And before Marcus could speak, the man said without looking up, "Italian V12s hate heat and pride equally," which froze Marcus in place because that wasn't something random people knew. And when the man finally straightened, wiping his hands on a rag, Marcus saw eyes that had seen far worse things than broken supercars. Eyes steady, unafraid. Eyes that didn't recognize him. And the man nodded toward the road and said, "Your Ferrari vapor-locked ECU threw a tantrum, and your fuel pump's begging for mercy." And Marcus, caught between disbelief and relief, asked how he could possibly know that. And the man shrugged and said, "Because machines talk if you listen," and introduced himself simply as Daniel, while the little girl, Lily, sat on an overturned bucket, swinging her legs, smiling like she'd known all along how this would end. And as Daniel walked with Marcus back to the car carrying nothing but a small toolbox, Marcus felt something unfamiliar crawling up his spine. Humility, because Daniel didn't gawk at the Ferrari, didn't ask questions about Marcus's life, didn't care who he was. And when Daniel opened the rear hatch and worked with calm precision, explaining nothing unless asked, Marcus found himself talking, filling the silence with pieces of his own story. The companies, the exits, the divorces, the constant chase, while Daniel listened without interruption. And when the Ferrari finally roared back to life, smooth and obedient, Marcus felt an unexpected pang of disappointment that the crisis was over, because something about this place, this man, this child, had cracked open a door he'd spent decades sealing shut, and he pulled out his wallet, offering cash that could have paid Daniel's mortgage twice over, only for Daniel to gently push his hand away and say, "Put it back." Not angrily, not proudly, just factually, like someone declining sugar and coffee. And Marcus, embarrassed, asked what he owed him then, and Daniel thought for a moment before saying, "Promise you won't drive like the world owes you." And Marcus laughed, agreeing, but the words lodged deeper than expected. And as he drove away, Lily waved with both hands. Fireflies released into the dusk like tiny escaped stars. And Marcus told himself it was just a strange afternoon, except he didn't forget it, couldn't forget it. And 2 weeks later, he found Marcus left that day, he left changed, though he didn't yet know how. And over the next months, his visits became frequent, sometimes with car trouble, sometimes without excuses at all. Bringing groceries, fixing the old house's leaky roof with hired help, Daniel didn't ask for, but accepted with wary gratitude, watching Lily grow more comfortable around him, asking blunt questions children ask, like why he didn't have kids, why he worked so much, why he looked sad when he smiled. And those questions followed him back to glass towers and boardrooms, haunting him during meetings where he finally pulled the plug on the surveillance deal, shocking partners, tanking stock prices, and costing himself hundreds of millions. A decision that made headlines Marcus didn't read because he was busy in that small garage learning how to listen to engines, learning how to be quiet, learning how to exist without being the most important thing in the room until the twist came crashing in. The form of men in black SUVs one autumn morning, government contractors and lawyers who tracked Daniel down with smiles too sharp, offering him a position, threatening consequences, revealing that Daniel's past wasn't just military but tied to a classified weapons program Marcus recognized instantly as something adjacent to his own abandoned tech. And suddenly, the quiet town felt smaller, the danger real, and Marcus realized that by walking away from his deal, he'd made enemies who didn't forget. And when Lily overheard raised voices and asked if her dad was in trouble, Marcus did something unthinkable even months earlier. He lied to protect someone else's peace, saying no, everything was fine, while privately arranging lawyers, leverage, and counteroffers, using his power not to dominate but to shield. And when the contractors returned with legal threats, they left empty-handed, blocked by injunctions and exposure. Marcus orchestrated at great personal risk, and in the aftermath, Daniel confronted Marcus, angry that he'd intervened without asking, until Marcus admitted the truth, that he'd needed to do something that mattered more than winning, that Lily deserved a childhood without shadows. And Daniel, after a long silence, extended his hand not as payment but as trust. And the final twist unfolded not with explosions or betrayals, but with a choice. Marcus sold the Ferrari, quietly, anonymously, funding a community workshop in that town where kids learned to build, fix, and understand machines instead of being intimidated by them. And on opening day, Lily cut the ribbon, whispering to Marcus, "See, Dad fixes everything." And Marcus realized she hadn't been talking about the car at all. And as the sun dipped low, fireflies rising again, Marcus understood that the richest thing he'd ever gained wasn't money, reputation, or control, but a place where he could finally stop proving himself and start belonging. And if you're still here, if this story hit something real inside you, don't forget to subscribe, because the best stories aren't about what breaks, but about who shows up to fix it.